The incredible journey of Tamar, from tragedy to divine triumph and miraculous redemption, in the 3rd year of Jehoiakim. When Jerusalem stood proud beneath the watchful gaze of Yahweh, the courts of King David were alive with the vibrant sounds of music and the fragrance of harvest feasting. Tamar, the radiant daughter of the eminent king, walked gracefully through the palace, her beauty anointed by goddess favor. However, with each step she took, the weight of hidden sorrow weighed heavily upon her heart, as the shadows of her life loomed larger. The lush gardens where she often prayed under the ancient olive trees became her sanctuary, a refuge where Tamar poured out her spirit to Yahweh, heart repentant and steadfast in covenantal faith. "You alone, O God, are my strength and my shield," she would whisper, hoping for strength to face the turmoil brewing beneath her life of splendor. Amidst festival celebrations that filled the palace with joyous laughter, a dark undercurrent entwined itself into the tapestry of familial love. Amnon, Tamar's half-brother, had succumbed to obsession, his gaze lingering on her with perverse intention. As the feasting began, joyous songs floated across the air, but panic nestled in Tamar's heart, for Amnon had grown increasingly withdrawn, an unsettling intensity surrounding him. That ill-fated evening, under the guise of illness, Amnon summoned Tamar into his chamber. "Come, my sister," he feigned weakness, a serpent cloaked in brotherly deception. Anchored in trust, she responded with a heart full of compassion, unaware of the treachery that lay coiled within him. The moment of betrayal shattered the sanctity of their bond. Amnon's lust erupted like a raging storm, ripping apart their family's harmony and relegating Tamar to a life marked by anguish. "O Yahweh, how can this be? Have you not seen my suffering?" she cried, letting her tears mingle with the soil beneath her feet. Days unfolded as Tamar navigated the halls of the palace like a ghost, her vibrant spirit dulled. Absalom, her fierce brother, sensed the tension that clung to her like a shroud. He vowed to avenge his sister's brokenness. In her grief, Tamar found solace in Absalom's steadfast love. Together, they labored under the silent burden of vengeance, knowing that God's justice would be their guiding light. As Absalom plotted against Amnon, the air crackled with righteous indignation. Tamar remained trapped in her quiet despair, yet between her tears lay the promise of God's divine intervention. Would not the Lord, who had woven their destinies, step in to right the wrongs? Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As blood cried out for justice, the plots unfolded in the kingdom like rippling water on a still pond, each act resonating to the chorus of divine orchestration. Absalom's heart raged, and the darkness of Amnon's actions ignited an inferno of righteous indignation. What awaited Tamar? A life of utter despair, or the triumphant promise of restoration through God's grace? The stage was set for confrontation, for the weights of betrayal began to shift. A divine orchestration was at work as the family stood on the brink of irrevocable change. Tamar, the crown jewel of David's heart, was yet to realize how her story wove into the greater tapestry of hope, redemption, and the covenantal love of her Lord. Would she rise from the ashes of her tragedy to see the dawn of his miraculous plan? The answers beckoned, shrouded in the mystery of God's unfolding saga. In those days, as Absalom's heart swelled with vengeance, he approached Tamar with a determination forged in the crucible of her suffering. "Sister, do not despair," he whispered with heavy resolve, his eyes aflame with brotherly love and a desire for justice. "For the Lord sees your pain, and I shall make Amnon pay for his dark deeds. I will not allow his sin to go unpunished." Tamar, filled with a mixture of fear and a glimmer of hope, spoke softly, "Absalom, where shall this path of vengeance lead us? The weight of blood spilt would be a heavy yoke upon our hearts. Let us seek the Lord's will, rather than be consumed by our rage." Though her voice trembled, steadfastness shone through, reflecting her unwavering faith in Yahweh's righteousness. But Absalom's anger blinded him, and he could not see the wisdom of her words. He devised a plan that would draw Amnon into the light of his sin, not knowing that such a confrontation would set into motion events that would haunt their family for generations. "On the day of the sheep-shearing feast," he said determinedly, "I will invite Amnon. There, I will execute my vengeance, as surely as the Lord lives." Days stretched into nights as Tamar endured the harrowing silence, her heart a vessel of unspoken turmoil. In her solitary moments, she lifted her eyes toward heaven, seeking divine solace. "O Lord, hear my cry," she implored, her spirit wrestling with the intertwining threads of sorrow and hope. "In the depths of this darkness, grant me wisdom to understand your plan. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me." As the appointed day approached, the king's household was alive with preparation. And amongst the revelry, Tamar caught glimpses of her half-brother Amnon, blissfully ignorant of the storm approaching. Once a figure of familial closeness, now he stood as a looming shadow, marked by the curse of his grievous sin. At last, the day came, and Absalom's feast filled the air with merriment and laughter. But beneath the surface, the currents of betrayal surged, for his heart was set on a path that would lead to the breaking of their family's bond. As Amnon succumbed to the rhythm of the festivities, Absalom called out, "Amnon, come, come and feast with us." With a heart laden with malice masked in brotherhood, Absalom summoned the servants. "When Amnon is merry with wine, strike him down. Let his blood atone for his wickedness against Tamar." As Tamar sat in silence, an unexplainable unease washed over her. Would this act of retribution truly restore her honor? The shadows danced around her, whispering doubts. Yet as she gazed into the distance, she sensed that something greater loomed beyond the horizon. The cries of vengeance and anguish echoed through the heart of Jerusalem, for the very walls of the palace would soon know of Absalom's wrath. "What has been done in darkness shall not remain hidden," she murmured, realizing the weight of the transgressions that formed chains around their fates. In that moment, the air thickened with divine tension, and every heart, laden with anticipation, awaited the unfolding of God's plan. Would the Lord intervene? Would mercy and justice entwine in the tapestry of their lives? As Tamar contemplated the depths of her agony, the promise of hope flickered dimly through the void. For unbeknownst to her, the divine design was merely initiating its final act. The heart of Yahweh burned with passion for his people, intertwined in the threads of loss and retribution, woven together for a greater purpose. What will be the outcome of this day? Tamar pondered, a question hanging in the balance, teasing a divine revelation yet to come forth. And it came to pass, as Absalom's feast rejoiced with sounds of mirth, the hearts of many gathered in the house of David felt a foreboding weight. The banquet hall sparkled with precious adornments, yet beneath the gilded surface lay the bitterness of betrayal. Amnon, unaware of his impending doom, raised his cup in joy, intoxicated not merely by the wine, but by the oblivion of his guilt. As he drank, laughter echoed, mingling with the very air that brimmed with suspense. Absalom's eyes glinted with righteous fury, and deep within him stirred the resolve to avenge his sister as shame. In this moment of revelry, he plotted the unwavering act that would shatter their family, a division amongst the children of David that would ripple through generations. The wine flowed liberally, and Amnon's spirit was lifted high, but even amidst the gaiety, Tamar's heart ached with an urgency that transcended the festivity. "O Lord," she prayed silently, "if vengeance must come, would it serve your purpose? Would the heart of Absalom remain unbroken on this path he chooses?" Her soul trembled for what might unfold, even as she sought solace in her Creator. Then the time arrived. Absalom gestured to his servants, his voice firm yet low. "Now, when Amnon has tasted enough of the sweet wine and his senses are dulled, strike him down." Let the justice of Tamar's suffering be met with retribution, and may it be swift. With his command, the atmosphere shifted. Replace mirth with foreboding, joy with trepidation. The servants, though shaken, obeyed. They slipped into the shadows, awaiting the signal of Absalom's wrath. Suddenly, Absalom leaned toward Amnon, feigning a semblance of brotherly concern. "Amnon, my brother, why is your heart downcast on a day such as this?" His words dripped like honey, yet their intent was poison. Amnon, squinting through his haze, replied, "It is nothing. Just the drink befuddles my mind." As he spoke, laughter surrounded him, but Absalom's heart was wrought with vengeance, and in a moment that felt both brief and eternal, he drew his sword. "Your sin is before you, Amnon," he cried, and the hall fell into an unnatural silence, as if the very air braced for what was to be unleashed. The servants acted swiftly. The flash of steel met with the pulse of betrayal, and Amnon, caught off guard, fell at the hands of Absalom. His cries were but a whisper amidst the tempestuous chaos that erupted that day. When the news reached Tamar, her heart, once perfect in its trust, splintered anew. "What is this life, O Lord?" she lamented. "Justice now appears as a shadow, draped in sorrow." Her spirit wrestled with questions of God's order. Could her suffering forge unity, or would it birth deeper divide within the royal family? Word spread quickly through the palace, and soon David himself was struck with grief upon hearing of Amnon's demise. "Brothers against brothers. A curse will surely follow in the wake of my son's actions," he lamented, filled with bewilderment and despair. Yet, even in the chaos of blame and heartbreak, a flicker of divine providence began to glimmer among the ruins. The Lord, watching over his creation, whispered the promise of reconciliation amidst calamity, for unbeknownst to Tamar, her agony was but the precursor to a greater plan, one that would weave through the tapestry of history, leading to redemption and hope. For the unfolding of this dark fate ripened the soil of their days, preparing the way for a promise whispered long ago amidst the prophets, a descendant who would forever change the hearts of men. And thus, in the darkest moments, light sets forth, God's sovereign design unfurling with purpose. What awaited the children of David from this day hence? The story was only beginning to be written in the pages of time, and divine intention lingered in the air, twinkling like the stars, awaiting to be unveiled. And it came to pass, in the days following Amnon's death, that Absalom fled afar from the face of his father, for he feared the wrath of David. His heart, once filled with the fire of vengeance, now knew the burden of guilt, and he sought refuge in the house of Talmai, king of Geshur. The kingdom of Israel was cast into tumult. Whispers filled the streets, and the hearts of the people trembled. "Behold, the son of David has slain his brother," they murmured, their voices mingling with sorrow and confusion. The loyalty of the people waned, and many turned their eyes from David, for the shadow of betrayal loomed heavy upon the house of Judah. Meanwhile, David, consumed with grief, withdrew from his throne. "If only I had known," he lamented. "Could I have not spoken to Absalom? Could I have not mended the hearts of my children?" His spirit was like the dry ground, parched in the absence of harmony. But the Lord stirred within the heart of David, a yearning for reconciliation, and he whispered promises of healing, for his eyes beheld the plight of Tamar. In the shadows of her sorrow, Tamar wept for what had been shattered. "O Lord," she cried fervently, "in the silence of this darkness, where is your light? Has my grief no purpose? Is there no balm for my soul?" But even as she articulated her lament, a whisper of hope danced upon the winds of despair. Something greater was at work, concealed from her eyes but known unto God. Then one day, the word reached David that Absalom had been comforted by the king of Geshur. His heart, once aflame with vengeance, was softened by the hospitality of a foreign king. And David longed for his son, yet he battled with the turmoil of his heart, for how could he forgive the slayer of Amnon? Yet, the Lord spoke unto David, reminding him of the bond of family, of love that transcends sin and sorrow. "Reconcile, O David," he urged, for you are a father who delights in his children, even in their waywardness." Thus, emboldened by divine prompting, David commanded that Absalom be summoned back to Jerusalem. As Absalom journeyed homeward, the ground reflected the turmoil within him. He was not the man who left his father's house. His heart bore the scars of conflict, and his spirit ached with the weight of sorrow. Yet the Lord had not forsaken him. When Absalom entered the city, a procession greeted him. The people of Israel, with mixed emotions, saw their prince. But it was Tamar who stood in the shadows, wrestling with the reality that had torn apart her family. She had been silenced, yet within her, a great strength began to stir, a knowledge that her pain would not be in vain, for God was in the business of transformation. In secret, Tamar sought the wisdom of the Lord. Is there a path through this heartache? Can you turn this mourning into dancing? The answer rested within the divine will, a plan unfolding with time. And so, as the threads of redemption began to weave through the hearts of the royal family, a prophetic whisper lingered in the air. What seems lost to despair shall be restored unto glory. The lineage of David carries a promise that none can sever. For though shadows loomed thick upon the horizon, the dawn of divine intervention was yet to break. And it was then that a realization ignited within her. The one who sees all, he has not stopped shaping the narrative of our lives. Thus, even in the throes of turmoil, Tamar held to the hope of restoration. For God's sovereign hand was preparing a way through the ruins of their tragedy. What was coming would reveal the profound depth of God's redemptive plan, and the lengths he would go to bring about restoration. Was there a more glorious chapter awaiting in the story of his chosen? And it came to pass that Absalom returned to Jerusalem, yet he did not see the face of his father. Though the decree of David had called him back, the heart of the king remained burdened with unresolved grief. Days turned to weeks, and Absalom walked the streets of the city, his countenance veiled in shadows, longing for his father's embrace, yet fearing the depth of his sin. The people of Israel looked upon Absalom with divided hearts. Some whispered of his bravery in avenging Tamar, while others regarded him as a man stained with blood. "What shall we make of this prince?" they questioned. Absalom, aware of their gazes, sought to distance himself from the tumult of opinions, for he could feel their expectations, a surreal weight that pressed down upon his shoulders. But in the stillness of the night, when the stars adorned the deep sky, the spirit of Absalom cried out to the Lord, "Have I come back only to be cast aside? Will the fate of my brother be my own? And if so, what remedy is there for our family's sorrow?" His prayers pierced the silence, echoing through the heavens as he sought forgiveness and reconciliation. Then, as the Lord would have it, Joab, the son of Zeruiah, approached Absalom with cunning in his heart. Aware of the king's stubbornness, Joab devised a plan to bring Absalom before David. "Your father longs for you, yet he hides his heart from you," he spoke with a calculated tone. "Let me intercede on your behalf." Absalom, motivated by a glimmer of hope, agreed, and Joab went to the king. "May the king give ear to his son," Joab entreated. "For though a grievous wrong has been done, forgiveness is the lifeblood of the kingdom." And so Joab pressed upon the heart of David with a parable of a lamb, hidden from its master, conjuring a path toward compassion. David, stirred by Joab's words, sent for Absalom, and their meeting came at last. As Absalom fell to the ground before his father, David's eyes, filled with unshed tears, met his son's gaze. "Is it my son Absalom?" David whispered, a mixture of sorrow and relief enveloping him. "For I had thought I had lost you." "Father," Absalom replied, "I have sinned against heaven and against you. Yet here I stand. Let my life be in your hands." The embrace that followed bridged the chasm wrought by sorrow and vengeance, a divine encounter wrought by humility. Yet unknown to them, the broader realm of Israel was stirring, for there were those who would use this reconciliation to sow discord. The hearts of men, unbeknownst to David, conspired in darkness, for they saw the vulnerability of the king, and whispers of rebellion began to thread the air. Absalom, unaware of the peril that lurked in the shadows around him, continued to seek the favor of the people, winning their hearts with grand displays of charisma. Meanwhile, Tamar grieved in silence, her spirit emboldened, for she sensed a shift in the atmosphere. "O Lord," she prayed, "you are not finished with our story. May you turn the ashes of this family into something beautiful." Her heart resonated with a deep knowing that their trials would not end in despair but rather in a revelation of God's prevailing mercy. And thus, as the winds shifted and the stage was set, one could feel the divine orchestration tightening. For unbeknownst to all, God's hand was guiding the narrative toward an unforeseen conclusion, a redemptive arc that would echo through ages. Would the folly of man thwart his purposes, or would the sacred promise be fulfilled within this very family, hidden yet potent? For in the unfolding of these events, a truth lingered, tantalizing and profound. The path of brokenness is often the pathway to glory. Through the valley shall joy arise. What glory awaited in the intertwining destinies of the house of David? For the sovereign plan of the Almighty was indeed at work, drawing all toward a celestial crescendo. And it came to pass that Absalom, having reconciled with his father, sought to establish his place among the people. He rose early each day, standing by the gate of the city, where the men of Israel came to present their causes before the king. Absalom would call to them, saying, "What city are you from?" And when they answered, he would listen with attentive ears, feigning concern and sympathy for their grievances. "Your matters are good and right," Absalom would say, "but there is no man appointed by the king to hear you." His voice, smooth and persuasive, wove a web of favor around him. "If only I were made judge in the land, every man who had a suit or cause would come to me, and I would give him justice." Thus he stole the hearts of the men of Israel, for they found in him a champion, a voice of hope amid the sorrow of their king. But each day that passed found Joab watching, uneasy in his spirit. He remembered well the words of David and the consequences of Absalom's past. Is it wise to trust this son of David so fully? He pondered. Still, the pride of Absalom burned brightly, his ambition veiling the truth that laid hidden in his heart. And as he gained influence, his gaze turned toward the throne itself. After 4 years, Absalom summoned Joab, saying, "Go to Hebron, and tell my father I have vowed to offer a sacrifice there. Let him come, that I may honor him." But Joab perceived the darkness behind Absalom's words and hesitated. Nevertheless, Absalom pressed hard upon Joab until he relented, seeking to return to the favor of the prince. In Hebron, the great trumpets were blown, proclaiming the coronation of Absalom as king. The conspiracy thickened as Ahithophel, the counselor of David, opted to follow Absalom, thereby sealing the fate of many. The people of Israel, swayed by Absalom's charm and the treachery of folly, rallied to his cause, murmuring throughout the land, "Absalom has slain the king." David, though grieved by the betrayal, was filled with wisdom. He recognized the judgments of God upon his house and knew he had to flee Jerusalem. In haste, he gathered his household and fled, his heart heavy yet resolute in the hands of the Almighty. "As the Lord lives, whether in life or in death, I shall trust in him," he declared, tears wetting the pathway beneath him. Meanwhile, Tamar watched from afar, her heart torn by the treachery of her half-brother. "O Lord, what shall become of my father? What trials await our family?" she cried out, yet within her spirit, she felt the stirring of hope. The Lord, in his sovereign majesty, was weaving a tapestry rich in redemption, even amidst chaos. As Absalom feasted in Hebron, reveling in his ill-gotten reign, he remained unaware that the hand of God was not grieved and powerless. In every plot, a divine thread was being drawn tight. For the Lord had declared through Nathan the prophet, "I will raise up evil against you from your own house." A promise intertwined with judgment, yet also with mercy. In the unfolding of their stories, it became evident. The hearts of kings are in the hand of the Lord, and he directs them as he wills. What would the end of this tale reveal? For the course of Absalom's ambition continued to tread perilous ground, unbeknownst to him, heralding a fate that would echo through the generations of Israel. Thus, God's purpose remained intact, shattering illusions of control and whispering through all calamity, "Even in rebellion, I shall bring forth my covenant promise." For the path toward redemption was set, yet the hour of reckoning approached, and all hearts would soon know the weight of divine justice. Would Absalom's rebellion against his father fulfill God's promise? Or would a deeper lesson emerge from within the trials that lie ahead? And it came to pass that as David fled, the news of his flight spread throughout Jerusalem, causing great consternation and fear among the people. They were torn between loyalty to the king and the allure of Absalom's rising power. The murmurs grew loud as they whispered amongst themselves, "What shall we do? Shall we stand with David, or shall we embrace Absalom?" Tamar, distressed, sought refuge in the home of a trusted friend. "Oh, what a web of deceit and treachery has ensnared our family! What of my brother's ambition? What of my father's sorrow?" She lamented, her heart burdened with grief for her kin. Yet even in her despair, she felt a flicker of divine hope. "The Lord is my helper. I shall not be afraid," she whispered to herself, clinging to the faith that called her back to the promises made to Israel. In Hebron, Absalom reveled in the support of a misguided people, the crown hastily placed upon his head. Yet Ahithophel, in his council, saw the fragility of their victory, and he went to Absalom, saying, "Let me choose 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue David tonight. I will come upon him while he is weary and weak, and will cause him to fear. All the people that are with him will flee, and I will strike down only the king." But Absalom, though captivated by ambition, sought also the wisdom of those around him. He turned to Hushai the Archite, a man loyal to David, who stood among the counselors. "What say you? Shall we pursue David as Ahithophel advises?" And Hushai, with the art of a serpent and the wisdom of a dove, said, "Not so. The people are weary, and David is a man of war, stout-hearted and wise. Delay your pursuit, for now he is fortified. Bring together all Israel, and gather your strength." Thus, Hushai's words were heard, and Absalom perceived that this counsel was better in his own eyes than that of Ahithophel. For God had turned the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness. Through this, it became manifest that the Lord was orchestrating events, even in the midst of sorrow and strife. Meanwhile, as David wandered with his small band of loyal followers across the rugged terrain, a man from the house of Saul, Shimei, came forth cursing and casting stones. Get out, you man of blood, you worthless fellow! The Lord has avenged on you all the blood of the house of Saul." Yet Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, desired to take off his head. But David restrained him, saying, "If he curses because the Lord has said to him, 'Curse David,' who then shall say, 'Why have you done so?'" In the depths of despair, David's heart yearned for divine direction. "O Lord, have mercy! My enemies surround me, and my own son has turned against me. Yet I shall wait upon you, for you are my fortress." Thus he prayed as the shadows lengthened around him, knowing that even in this valley of treachery, God's plans were at work. And Tamar, witnessing the unfolding tribulations from her place afar, pondered within her heart, "Is there hope for my father? Will he bear this trial and rise again?" As she prayed fervently, sensing the weight of divine destiny heavy upon her spirit, a profound truth was revealed. For from the ashes of betrayal shall rise the beauty of divine restoration. As the dusk fell upon Hebron, jealousy and ambition waged war against love and loyalty. The stage was set for a reckoning that would draw all toward the crossroad of God's ultimate plan. And even then, the Lord spoke within the tempest of turmoil, proclaiming softly, "Fear not, for in the shadows of betrayal, the dawn of my divine purpose shall arise. Beloved, the tapestry of your lives is woven with threads unseen, and I shall reveal my sovereign plan." And it came to pass that as David wandered further into the wilderness, his spirit weighed down by anguish, the Lord God stirred the hearts of those who were still loyal to him. Among them was Abiathar the priest, who, having escaped from the treachery of Absalom, brought with him an ephod. "O king," he said, "I have come to entreat the counsel of the Lord on your behalf. We must seek his face, for only he can show us the way amid these dark trials." David, with a heart yearning for divine wisdom, requested of Abiathar, "Bring me the ephod." When the priest did so, David prayed earnestly, "O Lord, shall I pursue this band of adversaries? Will you give them into my hand?" And the Lord answered him, saying, "Pursue, for you shall surely overtake and rescue." Encouraged by the promise of the Lord, David rallied his faithful men. They set forth quickly, as eagles take to the wind, traveling through the terrain rugged and desolate. As they journeyed deeper into the wilderness, they came upon an Egyptian servant, abandoned and left to perish. His master had cast him out because he had fallen sick. David, moved with compassion, offered him sustenance and water, reviving his spirit. "Who is your master?" asked David. The Egyptian replied, "I serve a man from the camp of Absalom." We struck David's camp, for he was a man distressed and in flight. At these words, a fervor ignited in David's heart, for he rushed forth with renewed resolve. "Lead us to your master, and we shall smite him." In Hebron, Absalom, now resting in a false security, consulted Ahithophel once more, who sought to solidify his hold on the throne. But unbeknownst to him, a great tide was swelling against him, as David's band of warriors drew closer with zeal ignited by the Lord's promise. Meanwhile, Tamar, safe in the haven of her friend, felt the weight of her family's troubles pressing upon her as she poured forth her prayers. "O Lord, where is the hope for my father and his kingdom?" she pleaded. As she awaited a word from heaven, she received an impression in her spirit. "Even in the depths of despair shall my father find you. For the Lord shall not leave him forsaken as darkness looms," was the assurance that filled her heart, anchoring her soul amidst uncertainty. As the sun began to rise, casting light upon the clouds of conflict, the dust stirred in the path of David and his men. They came upon the camp of Absalom unawares, and the encounter that followed was fierce and chaotic. The might of David, anointed of the Lord, surged forth, driving the forces of Absalom into confusion and fear, signaling the hand of God upon the battle. Yet despite the bloodshed, David called out, "Be gentle for my sake, for the young man Absalom is my son." Thus, his heart remained heavy, for love forged chains that held him captive even in the throes of battle. And thus amid the tumult, the revealing of God's sovereign plan was at hand. The Lord spoke through the fervent prayers of Tamar, propelling her father toward redemption. "For I am the God who restores," he whispered within the storm. "Out of this conflict, a new legacy shall emerge, and David shall see the fullness of my promise fulfilled in his life and lineage." And it came to pass that as the dust settled upon the battlefield, the cries of the fallen echoed within the hearts of men. David, still heavy with the burden of his love for Absalom, sought the face of the Lord with all fervency. "O God of my salvation," he cried, "how can I rejoice in victory while my son lies in peril?" The tumult of battle soon turned to a profound silence, as the soldiers of David stood still, feeling the weight of their king's sorrow. Among these brave men was Abishai, son of Zeruiah, who approached David with a heart full of zeal. "Let us be rid of this treachery once and for all, O king. Allow us to pursue and capture them who sought your life." But David, even amid this moment of triumph, sought not revenge but mercy. Then Abiathar the priest, looking upon David, said, "My lord, this is the time to inquire again of the Lord. His plans are greater than our own." Thus, David, rising from the ashes of his own turmoil, returned to the ephod, seeking God once more. "Shall I pursue, O Lord? What shall become of the life of Absalom?" The Lord answered him with a whisper, infusing David's heart with chilling clarity, "You may pursue, but the fate of your son is shrouded in my wisdom alone." Conflicted, David gathered his men, urging them with tears, "Pursue the enemy, but do not harm the young man." As they ventured forth, Tamar, aware of the gravity of the situation, was enveloped in prayer at her friend's home. Each breath she took echoed with the plea, "O Lord, restore my family, grant us your mercy." She felt the pain of her father's heart, and she longed for the protective hand of God to intercede. Meanwhile, at the camp of Absalom, an evil counsel unfolded. Ahithophel, observing the tide turning, whispered to Absalom, "Make haste, gather your men, and fortify against David's army, for they come with fervor." But a revelation then befell Absalom. His heart, once proud, was now filled with dread. The plans of man are as whiffs of smoke, for all fall under the sovereign decree of the Almighty. As night descended, David and his men, weary yet unwavering, stumbled upon the remnants of Absalom's camp smattered across the land like scattered sheep without a shepherd. Their spirits, ignited by the Lord's promise, surged with strength anew, for within the shadows, they heard faint murmurs of the adversaries plotting against them. Tamar's anguish gave way to a prophetic vision, illuminating her spirit amid despair. "What if the Lord is about to bring forth his deliverance through my father's heart?" she whispered. "What if restoration and redemption lie at the very edge of this darkness?" Her faith blossomed like flowers in the wilderness, for God's truth anchored her soul amidst the chaos. And thus it was, as the light of day broke once more upon the horizon, a great reckoning unfolded. David's steadfast heart was tested against the storm, while above them, the heavens sighed in anticipation of justice and mercy intertwined. The forces of Absalom, stricken with fear, began to scatter as David's men gained ground, propelled by divine favor. In the midst of this tumult, a deep spiritual unknowing seized the hearts of many. Absalom, lost in pride, mustered his courage for one last stand. Would mercy prevail as the king of Israel sought to save even his son? The stage was set, and the culmination of God's sovereign plan lingered on the horizon, wrought with the mysteries of redemption. For the Lord declared, "In the brokenness of hearts, the path to restoration shall emerge, hidden in the folds of my righteous hand." And it came to pass that the battlefield fell silent as the clash of swords faded into the distance, and Absalom, caught within the thicket, became ensnared by the very thorns that grew amidst his ambitions. In his haste to flee, his head was caught in the branches of an oak, leaving him defenseless and exposed, a living representation of pride's folly. Meanwhile, the forces of David, led by his loyal commanders, marched onward, unaware of the fate that awaited Absalom. The once bold prince who had rallied men to his cause now faced the harsh reality of unchecked ambition, cut off from the love and protection of his father by the chasm of sin. "Alas, my beloved son," David cried when word reached him of Absalom's plight, his heart torn between duty and paternal love. "Would that I had died instead of you. O Absalom, my son, my son!" His lament echoed across the hills, a profound sorrow that transcended the conflict. For even amid the storm, his heart remained tethered to the love of a father. But God's sovereign hand was at work, intricately weaving through the despair of David and the tragedy of Tamar. Even in silence, beneath the weight of perceived defeat, the divine was charting a course of redemption. For the cries of Tamar, "O Lord, restore my family, grant us your mercy," resounded in heaven, rising as a fragrant offering before the Lord. As Absalom was found hanging there, Joab approached, with his heart set on his king's continued sorrow. With a swift and merciful strike, Joab put an end to Absalom's life, delivering the news that would fracture and transform the king's heart forever. For the death of his beloved son held no victory for David. It only deepened his lament. And in that moment of tragedy, Yahweh reminded them both, "Through sorrow shall joy emerge." The path of redemption often travels through the valley of death. Absalom's demise wrote an indelible chapter in the annals of Israel, but it did not spell the end of the story, for God's grace extends wider than human folly. Tamar, upon hearing the news, knelt before the Lord, pouring out her pain yet again. "O God, though darkness has come upon us, I trust in your unchanging love. If there is a future for my family, a path back to you, I will follow." Her heart, once burdened with grief, began to pulse with renewed strength, her spirit ignited by the promise of divine restoration. In the days following, David mourned in silence, yet a profound transformation began in his heart, a turning back to Yahweh. "Lord, in the shadows of my sorrow, teach me to seek your wisdom. Guide me to restore hope not only for myself but for my children." Allow me to weave the fabric of reconciliation and redemption into the legacy of our family. Thus, led by divine wisdom, David resolved to address the heart of the nation to seek restoration not only for himself and his family, but for the people of Israel, fractured by division and strife. He returned to Jerusalem, a humbled king, who understood that God's grace is sufficient even amid our deepest failures. As he entered his city, the people looked upon him not just as a king but as a man who had traversed the depths of sorrow, yet bore the light of divine purpose upon his brow. "Let our people rise again," David proclaimed, "for from the ashes shall we forge a new beginning, united under Yahweh, for his hand is not short that it cannot save." And Tamar, seeing her father's newfound resolve, rejoiced within her soul. She stepped forward, ready to embrace her destiny, calling upon the women of Israel to share the stories of grief transformed into praise, encouraging them that the Lord's mercy endures forever. Thus began a new chapter, marked not by the betrayals of the past, but by the promise of restoration. God utilized the remnants of tragedy to weave together a narrative of hope, a legacy that would reverberate through ages, culminating in the promise of the Messiah rooted in David's lineage. And so, beloved, as we reflect on this incredible journey of Tamar, Absalom, and David, let us carry forth these lessons in our hearts, that our God, even in our darkest moments, is ever at work for our good, crafting beauty from ashes and weaving restoration from despair. Now, I invite you to heed the call of truth in your life. If this story has stirred your heart, you need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word and not miss the next powerful biblical stories. Leave a like now to help spread God's Word through the algorithm, impacting lives beyond measure. Comment below with your spiritual reflections. How has this biblical story impacted your faith? Your testimony is a beacon of light for many. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth and share the transformative power of God's Word.